So this is not a very popular duty, and I will be extremely brief. At the outset, I would like to compliment the IMF for having organized such a educative seminar. I think all of us were educated. We spoke also, and we were educated in turn. As far as the closing remarks are concerned, I will not go into any of the presentation. I just stick to a couple of macro points. One is that we today have a name. I mean, the Prime Minister has set a name that India should be a developed country by 2047. And that requires, as per the RBI, 7.5% growth every year for the next, till 2047. This 7.6 actually, as per the RBI. This has been achieved by India, and this is the RBI report, only twice in the last 25 years. We've only gone above 7.5 twice. So that means if this has to be translated, then every sector has to perform, and the maritime sector that we are talking about will need to contribute. In China, it is contributing about 10% to the GDP, 9 to 10% for the last 30 years or so. India, as per our figures, is roughly around 4%, sometimes 5%, which I think is slightly exaggerated to my mind. But the fact is that the maritime sector, which includes the shipbuilding, civilian, military, everything included, has to contribute. This year, we still remain the largest importer of weapons in the world. As per SIPRI, we are 11.4%. Saudi Arabia is 9.4 odd percent. China is 4.6%. So there is a lot of things we have to do. And I think one of the things we have to do, I think what I mentioned about the single vendor, I think even Admiral Srinivas mentioned about the change in the organization. There has to be a change, structural change in the organization. Otherwise, what we will keep doing is a bit of band-aid. A lot of good work, however, is happening. And the second point I wanted to mention was that we have a very dangerous adversary. My main topic of study today is China, on the maritime side particularly. And today China is a 350 frontline ship navy. Indian Navy, we say 130, but actually out of them around 50 are frontline ships. And out of which, if you take it even 25% being in refit at any given time, you can see the kind of imbalance that is developing. And even the USA's frontline ships today are less than 150. And China has 350 frontline ships. This is as per the US intelligence report, which is likely to go up to 430 by 2030. Even if it doesn't go to 430, even if it goes to 400, you can see that what component of that can be deployed against us in the Indian Ocean, which would really mean that you would get swamped. And if they develop the bases as they are developing, the first base has already come up in Djibouti. The studies that about 3 more bases could happen. Gwadar is ripe for the picking. That would be right sitting on top of our oil juggler from the Persian Gulf. Then you can see the kind of complications that start coming up. Similarly, the kind of imbalance in force levels that is coming, particularly in the submarines. The last contract we signed was 2006. We've been struggling for the last now since 2008 for the 75 India. And the SSNs, I'm not in service, but I don't know whether they have been sanctioned or not sanctioned. But the fact is there is a long gestation time, as all of you are aware, in production and operationalization. And if we don't start today, then by 2047, even if you're a developed country and you haven't developed your maritime power, military power, then it is a bit of a hollow equation. It will be something like Japan was without the security umbrella of the United States. But as I said, from this session, what has emerged is that a lot of good work is going on. A lot of private companies have come up, and private companies are really the way ahead, frankly. Because as I said, the vitality, the energy, the new technology, the efforts can really only come in, not because DPSUs are bad, but because DPSUs are bound by too many rules and regulations, which does not allow them today to be as nimble or flexible as a private company. So I think there needs to be a basic restructuring of our entire defense ecosystem. It can be done. We have the capability, as has been shown, demonstrated. We have a lot of talent available in this country. There is a lot of vitality. And lastly, I would say, as was mentioned, we had a couple of talks on merchant shipbuilding. China is a classic example where the 5 principal shipyards in China, which make today, today 60% of the ships on order are being ordered on China. there's a synergy between civilian shipbuilding and military shipbuilding. All of them make nuclear submarines, aircraft carriers, frontline frigates, and the speed, that's why, is amazing. So the Renhai class cruisers, for example, 10,000 tons, huge ship, the largest cruiser in the world. It took 3 years for the first ship to be commissioned from design stage, and after that they have commissioned 7 more ships, the last one this year, in the space of 2 years. I don't know how they did it. 7 cruisers of 10,000 tons in the space of about 6 years have been commissioned from design. They are making the frigates at 6 months intervals at half the cost of Western, $350 million of a Western shipbuilding yard. And the speed of construction of aircraft carriers, the latest one from the design phase to launch was 3 years, and next year it is supposed to be commissioned. And that's close to a Ford class tonnage, though conventionally powered. So I think there are many things we have to do. I think we are off to a promising start, but we must keep the stark reality and the figures and the imbalances in mind, because the last thing I would like to mention is that combats have only occurred when there is an imbalance in power. And so if the balance of power between India and China goes beyond a point where he's emboldened enough to know that we would be deterred, then he would have done what Confucius says, win without fighting. And I think we should not allow that stage to be reached. But I think this seminar and many others provide enough food for thought, and I'm sure the IMF would send up the recommendations in some manner to the people that matter from the deliberations here, for whatever it's worth. And we should therefore contribute our might to Atmanirbhar Bharat and ensure that we, in a finite time frame, reduce this gap as much as possible. Thank you very much once again, and I think it was a great seminar.
Thank you, Admiral Chawla. And since you mentioned it, I would just like to tell the audience that we will be bringing out a compendium of the seminar, which will be in 2 parts. The first part will be primarily the papers which panelists have submitted. In case they have not submitted a paper, then we'll put a transcript of their talk which they have given today. And the second part will be the presentations that they have made during the seminar. May I request President IMF to give the memento to Admiral Chawla.